maybe you want to pair Palencia with a lefty. So that makes a little bit more sense. So tough lefties come up in the 8th. There's Chapman or some other lefty. Or maybe he even gets the 9th, and Palencia would get the 8th, depending on the order in that inning. So the answer is yes. I think and that's kind of what I meant on that Marquee podcast. Like, you'll know if they're really serious about October if they pull another Chapman and Rondon situation, if they pair someone with Palencia. Now, the other thing is they may use up a ton of assets to get a starter or two because that's more important. So there's no doubt that's first and foremost on their list. But, again, it's dual pass, getting to October and winning in October.
All right. I've got to ask you, too, about Matthew Boyd. And I've got to admit, I was on these airwaves, and I really panned the Matthew Boyd signing. I know he was good at the end of the year last year when he came back, but it was in a very short time. I thought it was more of a depth piece. I thought they needed a better starter, and this was before Steele got hurt. And I also thought that it was ridiculous for Jed Hoyer to ask all these guys to overachieve. So Boyd checks both of these boxes, Jesse, where he proved me wrong and it's saying that this was not a good signing. And B, he's one of these several players like Seiya who are having career years.
Yeah, I'll give you a break because I think you at least said, look, if you sign him as a 5, that's fine, as long as you also sign or trade for 1 or 2.
Yes.
It was just the fact that was their big starting pitching, addition that I think people had a problem with. Now, I did like him probably a little bit more than most because I did cover the playoffs, and he was really good. I mean, when Cleveland handed him the ball like 3 times in the playoffs, that meant something, but it was such a short span, 8 regular season games, those playoff games. It's hard to imagine he'd be this, when you fast forward it. He's been everything they could have asked for, if not more, considering Steele and Imanaga's injury. Good chance he makes the All-Star game on Sunday, his first All-Star game. It's a good chance, not a fait accompli like it is with PCA, and we'll see about Tucker in an hour from now. We can talk about that in a moment, but Matthew Boyd's been a savior. He's just he's the left-handed Kyle Hendricks in a lot of ways. Like there's going to be some big runners on the base pass, but he's going to get in and out of trouble, and he's going to do it with his head as much as his arm.
What do you expect for Shota in the second start, and how much more they can stretch him out? I mean, he was pretty damn good. It was impressive return considering how long he was gone. But what do you think about Shota in the first home start now since coming back off the injury?
I think he'll be typical Shota, especially against a pretty light hitting Guardians team. As long as you avoid, maybe Kwan a little bit, but Jose Ramirez, this is not a great hitting team. Yeah. Wind blowing out slightly to left, so that never helps a guy like Shota. But he's kind of mastered this ballpark. He'll give up the occasional home run, but not often and not many of them, that's for sure. So I expect really good out of Shota Imanaga in his second start back.
How certain are you guys, for both of you, that the Cubs now have their closer in Palencia? He hit 102 on a few pitches yesterday. He looked dominant. Have they found their real closer?
So one of the fascinating conversations over the last 24 hours with Carter on with Carmen and myself, and then Jed yesterday in the afternoon, was talking about the two dynamics of getting to the playoffs and winning in the playoffs. Two different things. He even mentioned the Chapman trade. He's like, we had a 99% chance of getting in without Chapman. It was about October. That's why we never pitched to more than 3 outs until October. So it is similar here. As good as Palencia is, the answer is yes. They have found their closer. It doesn't mean he's getting every save in October. I keep telling people that because once August 1st comes, you can't change your team. And this guy's never done in October, and he may need some help. But that is regardless of what you're asking. I asked Counsell about him channeling the energy of the crowd. I've seen a change in Palencia and his confidence. And now where a crowd like yesterday in the 9th inning, whether it be earlier in the year or last season, may have gotten to him, I think he's channeling all that. I think that was his best performance last night. You talked to his teammates afterwards, Michael Busch, these guys were just like, we just sat back and watched this guy throw gas. And it's not like the radar gun was any better than it was before. It's still around 100. But there was something about his demeanor that I think has changed recently. And now all these things that happened in the 9th inning, I think he's using it to his advantage instead of being worried about the moment. So the answer is yes, they found their closer, but I would not be shocked if they trade for someone that at least could get some saves in October.
Yeah, that's a fair way of putting it. One thing I agree with you on is The way he bounced back in St. Louis. Remember when he got sidetracked in Florida early in his run? That was a different guy than in St. Louis when there's first and second. I think it was nobody out. Then I think he struck out the side right after that, channeling it on the road in a more hostile environment. The other thing, I did hear your comparison. I'm glad to hear you scale back a little bit. You were mentioning Hector Rondon in 15 and 16 when they did get Chapman. The only difference, and I heard you give his ERA with the Cubs, and I think it was like under 2.
Low 2.
Yeah. And it was great. Hector Rondon never had this stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like the eye test is much different between what Rondon could and couldn't do and what Palencia now is doing.
100% agree. The one thing I will say is nobody had the kind of stuff closers have now.
Right.
10 years, you wouldn't find a Palencia 10 years ago. Well, I mean, maybe there's one. It was Aroldis Chapman.
Right.
There was a couple in the league. Now there's many more doing it, but I don't disagree with, but you sort of have to grade it on a curve. Not many were doing it 10 years ago. But yeah, Palencia is further along than Rondon. All I'm saying is, and even Jed mentioned it, like you got to fortify, because it is all about bullpens in October. So, look, it's a great problem to have. You have what is a emerging great closer, and you have the assets to maybe go get someone else for the back end.
Would fortify ever include a big swing like someone they're facing this week in Emmanuel Clase? I don't even know if he's going to become available, but, like, if the Guardians made him available, like, is that not what they need to do because it would be too costly? Or is that the kind of thing you're talking about, Jess?
Well, since they did it 10 years ago, I would say yes. As they make the calculations of getting there and winning in October, I think something like that is possible. Now, I even mentioned Chapman the other day,
right?
Because maybe you want to pair Palencia with a lefty. So that makes a little bit more sense. So tough lefties come up in the 8th. There's Chapman or some other lefty. Or maybe he even gets the 9th and Palencia would get the 8th, depending on the order in that inning. So the answer is yes. I think and that's kind of what I meant on that Marquee podcast. Like, you'll know if they're really serious about October if they pull another Chapman and Rondon situation, if they pair someone with Palencia. Now, the other thing is they may use up a ton of assets to get a starter or two because that's more important. They may do that. They rank 23rd or 22nd in starters ERA, which is 5th in the division, yes, even behind Pittsburgh. So there's no doubt that's first and foremost on their list. But again, it's dual pass. Getting to October and winning in October.
What's the lineup look like tonight, Jesse?
Let me pull it up for you because I didn't look at it yet, to be honest.
Come on, Jesse. They're facing a righty, so I would assume PCA's hitting 4th.
Yeah. I assume it's the same, but I did ask, as I pull it up, I did ask counsel about Michael Busch getting some chances against lefties because he was praising Michael Busch just today, and he's on a run, and he is on a great run right now. And as I look at the lineup, it is the same as normal here. Shaw's the third baseman. So, and he mentioned, well, we'll look at it like we look at it every time there's a lefty. It depends on the lefty. So he didn't commit to it. Even though the guy's proving himself over and over again, against righties at least, he's not necessarily going to get a better chance against left-handed pitching. So,
which I don't know, and I know that there are analytics to this. I don't understand that. I think when, like, he's already shown you that he's made progress as a hitter against righties, and he was nice last year. He's gotten better this year. Why not? Hey, let's see if we can continue to progress here. You did it with Palencia. Like, Palencia's a young guy where, okay, we're going to start him off in high leverage, and then we could make him the closer. With Michael Busch succeeding, why not put a little more on his plate?
I think that's a great way to put it because you are testing guys out for October.
Yes.
If there's a random middle reliever from the left side on the mound, do you really want Justin Turner up there and not what Michael Busch can potentially do? Now, you don't want him up there if he's never faced a lefty all season. You want him up there if he has some at-bats. Now, it's one thing if Terry Skubal's on the mound, whether it be Justin Turner or Michael Busch, they have little chance. But, you could pick your poison there. But I'm with you, like, stretch the bounds of these guys and see what they can do. You're doing it with Palencia. So I don't know when that moment's going to come for Michael Busch, but he's certainly proving it against right-handed pitching.
Can I ask a Sox question?
I guess.
Of course you can. What do you mean?
Who for a while there, it was pretty obvious who their all-star was going to be, was Shane Smith. He's given up like 16 earned runs in his last 3 starts. He walks way too many guys, too. He's a few innings shy of being a qualified pitcher. If he were, he'd be top 10 in walk rate amongst all starters in baseball. It's ridiculous. It's north of 10%. And it bit him last night. Who's their all-star? I mean, is it still got to be Shane Smith?
I think so. Kyle Teal? No, I'm kidding.
Not enough. Yeah, I mean, he just hasn't played enough.
It can't be a hitter. It just can't be.
I guess Vargas, if anybody, but probably not.
He's
I mean,
in a slump now. I heard
a little
the guy
bit.
say this morning.
He is. It's got to be, I guess, the myth. It's just he stunk the last 3 weeks.
Does Hauser have too few innings to be their guy?
I think so.
226 now for Vargas batting average. Hovering around 700 OPS for the Sox. It's good.
Yeah.
For an All-Star, not necessarily, but of course. You sort of have to grade on a curve because someone has to make it. It's probably Smith still. Right. It's probably Smith still.
Don't you guys hate this rule? Like I've always hated it, and it's not this. I'm not being like anti-Sox here. If you don't have a true All-Star, why should you? This is the everyone gets a participation
no,
trophy.
It's not that. It's because they want every fan base represented because they think more.
Do you
fans,
really think that Sox fans are going to watch more because Shane Smith could be a part of this?
I don't, Sylvie. I agree with you. I think it's silly. I don't think that the White Sox have an All-Star. I don't, and a month ago I probably would have said Shane Smith, but as you look at it now, I don't know.
Mike Vassell would be probably the other one. Yeah, he'd be the other one. But they don't take too many of those kinds of guys.
Right.
So I don't know. I go back and forth on the rule. I kind of like it, just for tradition. But I don't disagree with you, Sylvie. There's a few years where there's just nobody on some teams that deserve it,
correct.
And this might be one of them with the White Sox.
I think it's one of them.
Yeah. And then trade talks. I'm going to ping pong back to the Cubs here. What you said yesterday was you were spot on regarding Jed and Tucker. Like the line that he used did not sound confident. Like it was very interesting, Jesse. We were at the end of the year playing the difference, or at the end of the show. Let me play it for everyone now so they could hear the difference.
This was Jed yesterday when he met the media?
This is Jed yesterday. So, okay, listen to how adamant he is about making the trades and having enough resources to do whatever they want to do. Listen to him.
I feel like this team has played really well. Obviously this place is full almost every night, and I think that we'll have the resources to make the moves needed to make at the deadline. That I'm very confident in.
I'm very confident we'll have this. We're going to do that. Is it, Charlie, is it the Hoyer one, the one that I'm referring to, on the Cam Smith, or was it the other one?
I believe Hoyer 1 is on the Cam Smith.
Okay, so I'm not sure if that was the answer, but with that, let me just play it and let's see what it is.
You want to keep a player like that, like you go into the negotiation wanting to keep him, but obviously you realize like at some point you must have your limits. Obviously we'll keep all those things internal, but certainly I think Kyle is is the kind of player you want to keep. I've said it all along, and obviously we'll be talking to Casey about that at some point. But I think you have to ultimately you have to go into that negotiation with a value. I think that you have to do that with any negotiation, and I don't think that changes anything.
So I thought
so much to unpack there.
Yeah, because Jesse, like what stood out to me is that first soundbite I played. There's no doubt in your mind that Jed has what he needs to make the team better, and he's very confident in that. In the answer regarding Tucker and the negotiations, he said, A, you must have your limits, and B, you got to put a value on everyone, giving him an out on a few of these things.
That's what Jesse said, too.
It was not a very confident answer.
I know. I'm surprised he gave that answer on Tucker, that he even revealed that much. And, this is exactly what I said even as recently as to you yesterday.
Yes.
They're going to pull out the calculator. They're going to come up with and put a value on him. But he did say go into the negotiation, so maybe that leaves it open to actually negotiate. But I think we see where he's headed with this. And then, the last part of that answer was, no matter what Cam Smith does, it doesn't change my evaluation of Tucker. That's what he was saying. So very revealing, even revealing where he mentions the agent. The agent is Casey Close, his name.
He's mentioned him a few times, Jess.
Well, right, and he says when we talk to Casey Close. Yeah. That's also revealing they really haven't had the dialogue, something else I've reported. So he revealed a lot, saying a little in there. But as far as the resources, which is more important regarding this season, he even mentioned the attendance here. You know, you got to sort of read between the lines. And he's right. The attendance helps matters. Like, Crane's got money in the bank right now. This is the time that you have it because, you know, people are buying things and coming through the turnstiles. So he mentions the attendance tied into the fact that he's going to have the resources. That's one thing we've been critical of ownerships. But when it comes to July, I haven't heard through the grapevine or through Theo or Jed many times where they were turned down for something they wanted. They turned down Verlander, not ownership, right? Now, different in the offseason. Yeah. Different in the offseason when a budget is set. You know, yes, Tom Ricketts said no to Alex Bregman. But when you have a chance to win, I don't think we can be too critical of Tom Ricketts unless I'm missing some storylines that haven't been told about July trades that never happened. So I am confident they can go out and get basically what they need.
All right, anything else, Jess?
Well, like I said, less than an hour. I have a feeling we're going to possibly not. I mean, when I say possibly, it's not for sure, but PCA is going to start in the All-Star game. The question is Kyle Tucker, and I think it's going to be close. There's a good chance they're both starting center field and right field, and it was real interesting to sort of talk to counsel about them both because today is a newsy day with them. And just think about it. Just they're both stars, or one's an emerging star, the other is a star, with completely different ways about it, right? Completely different personalities, how they channel it going into the batter's box. Pete Crow Armstrong uses emotion, and Kyle Tucker doesn't. Mm-hmm. And yet they're really good players and with similar skill sets in the slug and the speed, but they even go about that in a different way. So I thought that was just kind of cool. If they're in center, in right, in Atlanta, just two different guys, two different personalities, but representing the Cubs. We'll find out in about a half an hour. And by the way, tonight's game on TV here is exclusively on ESPN. Boog Shambi is in the booth with Kyle Peterson and Chris Burke.
Nice. Oh, good. Excellent. So we keep our Boog.
National game 2 nights in a row.
Yeah.
Cubs and Guardians.
Good stuff, Jesse. Appreciate it.
All right, boys. Take care.
Jess.
All right, there's Jesse.